Okay, here we are with Jason Shron, President of Rapido Trains Inc. And absolute pleasure to see you here and seeing obviously the news that's been announced about the forthcoming model of the APT-E. So, why did you go and choose this?
Well, a lot of reasons, okay. The main reason though is that when I was growing up, the APT-E was everywhere, all right? I mean, you don't realize it here, but for those of us outside of the UK, when I grew up in Toronto, I'm from Montreal, you always have to say you're from Montreal. You can't say you're from Toronto, all right? So, if I got a book about railways, it was inevitably printed in the UK, and it was inevitably had the APT on it, in it, all over, right? Because in the 70s, the APT was the future.
Yeah.
Okay, this was just after beaching.
Yeah.
Okay, there was like, oh my God, we've just lost half of our branch lines, right? And what's everything's gone to pot, et cetera, et cetera. And here was this brilliant design saying we're looking forward. We've got an idea for this train of the future. It's going to be the advanced passenger train, and the APT was the experimental one. It was the one, that really made the headlines, right? I mean, when I'm sure your readers know about this APT-E, the APT-P. You can read all about it at our website. We give all the information. But basically, a lot of the bad publicity came from the APT-P. That was in the 1980s, right? But the APT-E, to all intents and purposes, was a real success, right? And there was a real sense of optimism about it. And so it got everywhere. So I grew up reading about this train, saying, I want to go to England where I can see an APT. I didn't realize, right, that it was this 4-car thing held together with sellotape, right? That basically, was just a bunch of guys proving a concept, right? Because for us, it was everywhere. I thought I'd be able to go to the UK and I'd be able to get on the APT-E and go somewhere, right? Because it was everywhere. So I love this train. I'm a personal big fan of the APT-E. That's one reason to do it. The other reason to do the APT-E, obviously, is that I'm in my late 30s. I'll be 40 next year. I have a lot of colleagues who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, right? The Great Western Branch Line isn't doing it for us, all right? That's not our nostalgia. That's not our memory. This thing is our memory, all right? That's what we remember as our good old days, is this, all right? And it's necessary that we should finally have manufacturers say, you know what? I think that 1975, the year I was born, right? 1975 is amazing, okay? And we're going to bring out a model from 1975 and we're not going to apologize for it, all right? It's amazing. That's our memory. That's the boys' magazines, the railway magazines, the coffee table books. Okay, all the coffee table books come from here, all right? I'm sorry, for some reason, people in North America don't know how to make a coffee table book. You guys know how to make a coffee table book, and you had this train in your coffee table book, so we love this train, right? So there it is. I can't wait to see this running on my HO scale Kingston subdivision layout, which is going to dwarf everything else there because it's a different scale, but I don't care. I'm going to have it running. So I love this train, and does that summarize it? Do I have to give it a hug?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you say it's an amazing train. Now, I know that you have a tendency towards amazing models as well in terms of detail, fidelity to the prototype, the research that you actually carry out. And as we see, looking behind you, there's an awful lot of rivets on this thing. So, how's this design process going? What are the challenges that you've got?
Our biggest challenge, rivets are not such a problem because once you've figured it out, you can copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. The problem, of course, is that they're all different sizes. I mean, there's about 5 different sizes of rivets on here. And I bet you the biggest complaint is going to be the 7th rivet from the left in TC2 is too big. But that's been quite difficult dealing with all the rivet lines and making sure they go in the right spot. The biggest challenge is the shape. Okay. So this thing, the nose is all compound curves. And we do have drawings. We have drawings that are sliced, right? They're sliced, every 3 inches. This is what the nose looks like, right? But you have to understand, they only made 2 of them. So the chances of them following the drawings are pretty slim. So the option had to be, the only option had to be to do a 3D scan. There was no other way to do it, right? We had to do a 3D scan of the nose. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to basically put together the 3D scan with we've got existing drawings that we've done up, right? So we've done 3D CAD work based on the drawings, and we left off all the rivets, okay? Because it's very hard to move rivets, right? We can move grills, we can't move rivets. So we're going to take the 3D scan data, we're going to sort of overlay it on our drawing, and then we're going to change our drawing to match the 3D scan.
Right.
Right, so that's the process. Our biggest challenge is not the shape, it's not the interior. Let me tell you about interiors, okay? TC2, just down over there, all right, is full of instrumentation. The model is going to have instrumentation, and the model is going to have little blinking lights in the instrumentation. Because when I do it in 3D, it's going to be like blinking lights, blinking lights.
So here we are in front of the APT-E once again with Brian Greenwood, who is the chairman of the joint management board of Locomotion here at Shildon. And part of the important part of this APT-E project is the involvement of Locomotion models. So Brian, if you can explain a little bit about Locomotion models in part of this.
Well, thanks Andy, and a very warm welcome to Locomotion on a pretty important day for us. This whole project started back in, I guess, 2004. So we've been going quite a while now, 10 years. When Andrew, Scott and I first approached the major manufacturers with a view to doing the national collection miniature as a concept. And we decided to produce Delta Prototype as our first edition. We actually scanned that. It was one of the first 3D scans I think we've done in the model business in 2006 and released that in 2007 to great acclaim. So actually to progress to where we are today with Rapido in launching this iconic train behind us at the APT has been a major route for us to discovering how we could actually both satisfy the marketplace with very, very high quality models, creating our own brand with the National Collection in Miniature, finding models that would appeal to both collectors and model enthusiasts alike, and then producing those to a standard that was hopefully second to none. I think we've got a fairly good track record of doing that through City Truro, Midland Continental, Henderson, but
this is a much bigger, braver project and a new manufacturer to the UK market.
It is, because as we've been able to develop the business, clearly we started on a bit of a shoestring at the start. This is not a majorly invested business. It is a business that is run out of the museum, and all the funds from the business are retained here in the museum. So this is to the benefit of people who visit the NRM and visit Locomotion. And the funds are directly applied back to railways by the joint management that we mentioned earlier. So we've been able to build up a business. We've had some good volume of products. We've had some very, very successful products, particularly over the last year. Bruce Williams, the Ellen White Tank, and the rerun of the Delta prototype in East Coast. So we've got more financial security now, and we're able to branch out into more interesting products. Jason approached me last autumn, so this has all happened pretty quickly. It's not one that's not been in gestation for very long. With a view to producing a model of something he wanted to do, which we had at Locomotion. So he approached me as chairman in the first instance, and he and I agreed that it was just such a good fit for us to do together, exclusive. He's got, I think, a really great business model, which is very different to anything that the UK market's seen before.
And with you saying about it being different, one of the important things is that people have got to place that reservation for the product that they want. A lot of people may be used to wait and see what it comes out like. So we've got to look at Jason's track record with the products that he's produced for the North American marketplace, and to say this is going to be the quality that we're actually getting with the APT-E. And I think it's fair to say that, I mean, the price is actually a very welcome angle on it. It's a big, brave project, and it's not stupid money either. So,
well, we thought the price might surprise. And I'm delighted at your reaction, and I hope everyone else's reaction. I think it's an absolutely cracking price. But that was a tough negotiation to get there. So it's we're both realistic people. But the point you made about Jason's quality was fundamental in me deciding that this was a product we could afford to go with. I was confident that we were going to get the product quality that we had established as our norm through Delta prototype. That was quite clear. In fact, in some respects, the level of detail was even higher than I think we've done before.
Yeah.
So we had a cracking quality product. I was confident about the business model we were talking about. I know it's different to what we've done before, but we were so confident about that. We thought that people would actually believe, because it is the NRM and Locomotion, that we were absolutely serious about doing it, that we would have a good plan to do it and to do it well, and that the end product, more importantly, will arrive on time. And that's very critical because we all know the situation with both Spackman and Hornby have with production in China. And of course, Jason's producing in China too, but he's got direct control over the outcomes in a way that the other manufacturers haven't in the last couple of months. So for us, I think that's a big plus for us.
So given what you know, that you've got a high degree of confidence in the delivery by the end of 2015 and meeting the pricing that was stated.
I think the price clearly is something that we have committed to, and anybody ordering at the current prices and paying the deposit is guaranteed to actually that is the price of it, irrespective of what happens in China.
Right.
So,
and how much is that deposit?
The deposit is £50.
Right. And that's
per set.
So, and that's actually on the locomotionmodels.com website.
That's on our website now. You can order that from today, or you can ring the Locomotion Models shop here, speak to your favourite sales assistant, Sandra, and she'd be delighted to tell you if you don't want to do it on the website.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thanks very much indeed,
Thanks,
Brian.
Thanks for coming today.
Right, here we are back again in front of the APT-E, actually with Paul Leadley and David Leadley, who've been involved with the actual preservation and conservation of the APT-E. So, can I ask first of all then, when did your involvement first start with the APT-E?
My interest started because I was 9 years old when the train arrived at York, so I was looking over the North Car Park, and I was watching the Deltics and stuff go past, and you'd hear this whirring sound in the distance. I was sat on the wall, and then E-Train came from the back of the Railway Museum in the sunshine, and it was like, oh boy, that's a spaceship on wheels. You can imagine my excitement actually, it was something absolutely magical to see.
Yeah. So that obviously left an impression at an early age. So when did this come back to revisit you?
Well, in 1995, me and David decided that we'd seen it quite often at the museum, just getting worse and worse, but we really fancied having a look in it. I'd always said I wanted to see inside, so I contacted the Railway Museum, spoke to Richard Gibbon, and he says, come on down one day. And he gave us the keys and said, enjoy.
Right.
So we spent much of the day just going up and down. We were about the first people that had been in for nearly 20 years as well, so it was an interesting experience.
Right. So it was at this point then that, if you like, custodianship was handed over to yourselves then, was it?
Not really then, no.
Right.
It was in the end of mid-1999. I'd changed jobs, and I then I had access to the internet, and I came up with the idea of, is there anybody nuts enough to come and help me try and save this? So me and David decided, that's it, we'll try and put something together. So we made a website with the photographs that we'd used from 1995. And I thought, I'll contact the museum again. Richard was still there, thank goodness. It took about 6 months of fairly decent persuasion.
Right.
Till they said, all right, we'll take you fairly seriously. Come down and have a meeting. And I went down to speak to Richard first. And we spent most of the morning ironing a few things out. And then he said, okay, we'll try and do something. We should have get a list of volunteers together. And we'll have a 1st of April meeting 2000. Right. I think Richard was trying to tell me something. So we planned that on the website, and about, I think, 8-9 of us turned up at the time. And then the interesting point for that is 3 days before the first meeting was due, I got an email at work saying, hello, my name's Kit Spackman, I was the Chief System Development Engineer in the APT. I might be interested in your group, please. And there's my phone number. I didn't care what I was doing at work that day. It was basically that went out the window. So I was straight on the phone, rang Kit up, and he went, "Yep, I'll be there on Saturday." Yeah. And Kit's been absolutely brilliant since.
Brilliant.
It was a real feather in our cap as well, because I still thought the NRM didn't take us too seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite unusual that in terms of railway history, that we've actually got that skill and knowledge still available and willing to be involved with something. Yeah. I mean, I'd actually liked it as almost as though you can talk to Brunel about the atmospheric railway still. It's not quite that old, but yeah. So, how many people are actually in the group now?
Up here, because we're sort of like the back of beyond, there's about 12 of us.
Right.
At York, in our heyday, we had 47.
Okay, right.
Which was a bit unmanageable, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing of it being up here is it's undercover.
Yeah.
The problems we always had at York is it was outside.
Yeah.
And we were just fighting the elements all the time.
Yeah.
Fortunately, shortly after we started, Richard said there were we'd like to use APT-E as a promotional video for the lottery funding to get Locomotion. So we're like, okay, we'll get involved with that as well, and we did, and here we are.
Yeah. So, I mean, what have been the big challenges for you? Because it's not an ordinary preservation project, is it?
No, I think we're nuts, aren't we?
Completely. I mean, we've learned as we've gone along with this.
Yeah.
We were all novices when we started. What does this do? Well, I don't know. We'll take it apart and find out.
Yeah.
We're pretty much like the real team. We've used cut and tried methods.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. So, what would be your ultimate goal to actually get to as a preservation?
I think the ultimate goal, I think everybody would know, but would it ever happen? If there's any eccentric millionaires out there, give us some money and we'll get her running.
Right, well, there are some out there, but we've just got to persuade them.
We've got to persuade them, that's the thing.
So.
That's the thing.
Because this really is an important part of British railway heritage. I mean, I don't think its importance can be underestimated.
Well, while we were at York, we were seen as all nutcases.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. I mean, looking at the pictures at York from 1995, 2000, when we started to what it looks like now, there is no comparison.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. I mean, most of the bodywork's popped off and there's just rust everywhere.
Yeah.
We've been working on it 14 years. We'll keep going and we'll keep going, that's it.
Yeah.
We should thank Duchess of Hamilton for donating a boiler to us for our tent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was one of Richard's ideas. That is, keep me undercover, we'll make a huge tent to put on PC2. This is our Duchess of Hamilton has just had its boiler tubes renewed.
Right.
So we got all the boiler tubes wedded together and made this huge structure over the top of the train.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, sorry to interrupt the camera. Kit, come here a tick. We're actually just talking about you. There you go.
Do I have to lean on this shoulder?
Yeah, go on.
We'll both do it that way. Bloody nuts.
Right.
Oh yes, it's me.
Here we've actually been joined by Kit Spackman, who was the chief designer on the tilting.
No.
Sorry.
I was the development engineer, not the design engineer.
Sorry, development engineer on the tilting mechanism. So all the clever bits of the APT and the things that it actually became distinctive and renowned for. So, as I did refer to him as a little bit of a Brunelian character in terms of history relevance, and he also goes by the name of Mr. Tilt in a lot of places, including on RMweb, and he's actually been sort of like passing on helpful information on one of our modelers projects. So it's actually a pleasure to see Kit here. I mean, as Paul had said, that he's been a great part of the preservation work that's going on too. So, I mean, it's a bit of a landmark day today in a way. So, what do you think about this, Jason making a model of it?
Absolutely knocked out.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul and I have spoken in the past about it, and the one thing we decided that nobody would ever make a model of E-Train for the commercial market. People have scratch built them. I myself have made an attempt at doing an N-gauge one. Don't even think about it. You know, it's so small, it's not true. But we never ever thought it would come to this. And only 3 months ago?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
We started to learn about this, and we're going, what?
Yeah.
You know, these guys are crazy. When you look at their website, then you know they're crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of taken off.
Yeah.
And we've been emails and attachments going backwards and forwards across the Atlantic over the last few months, and we're telling them, no, those bits are wrong, those hatches aren't there, and no, you don't need an HK brake hose on both ends of the same axle. It's best if you put one on the other axle, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. And after having met the guys for real and seen their hardware in the plastic and the metal, you've got to believe that it's going to be a stupendous model. Really special. It's just amazing. Far better than I can imagine any of the other current manufacturers would do. The whole Rapido sort of concept appears to be, if you can actually see it in the real world, we're going to mould it into the molds. You can't argue with that.
I mean, thankfully, there's not a lot of detail underneath the real beast here that he's got to try and work with, thankfully.
Very true. You can't get under there anyway because the ground clearance is about that much. Having been subjected to doing precisely that back in the 70s, it's very, very tight.
What's your proudest moment actually in the 1970s through the development of the train?
Well, the first one, good story coming up here. The first one was when I was in the motor industry beforehand, and we heard about the APT, and we were working in control systems then. And sitting down at coffee breaks, as we did, we worked out how you do it. You put an accelerometer here, there, and one there. If you place some far enough apart, you could get some feedback from across the roll centre and get the stability turned down a bit. And you need a couple of jacks and a pump and a variable flow valve and all this sort of stuff. And I said then, I'd hate to be the guy who had to decide which way round the accelerometers went on the first one. And 2 years later, I was the guy who had to do that. And I was standing on Pop Train on Power Car 3, and Trevor Easton, also one of the tilt development engineers, was inside the control room, and I'm standing there with this thing and saying, Trevor, if I tilt it this way, do you get negative tilt or positive tilt? He said, I get positive. I said, that's no good, we better put it on that way. So we put it on that way, and then about half an hour afterwards, you could turn the hydraulics on first and then turn the controls on. So we turned the hydraulics on, and I said, okay, box out. Clunk, and hit the controls. Luckily, it was the right way around. The train went, and it worked. First time, I thought, business. And that was really, really, really felt achieving. But the second time was when we did the London-Leicester run in '76. That, in many ways, was vastly more important than the 152.3 run in the Western region earlier in the year. Because it proved everything that the APT concept was meant to do. And it was much busier. Everybody had to work, all the systems had to work to the maximum performance. We had to have maximum power, we did maximum brakes to get down to the speed restrictions. The tilt system had to be absolutely perfect. Amazingly, it did. Nothing ever went wrong on those 3 runs, from our point of view, which was superb.
Well, you say from your point of view, but you did have to take 3 runs at it to actually achieve it, didn't you?
There was always, with every test run, we always had, the program was always for 3 runs. But we were dogged by stupid. Well, the first one was stupid because the cab steps fell down. Because of the profile of the body, the cab steps were on the outside, and if they fell down, they were outside of the gauge. And it was a characteristic of the shape of the train that the wind going past the nose, once the steps were halfway down, it forced them down. So we were doing about 110 at the time when the steps failed. We had to slow down to about 40 before they could get enough leverage to pull it back up. And by that time, we'd lost 2 minutes, so that was the end of that. But 2 days later, we had another go at it. And despite the fact that Special Notice was very vehement about such things, the signalman at Wigston Junction let the Birmingham to Norwich DMU out in front of us, which slowed us down, and we came into Leicester some minutes late. Unfortunately for him, the board member for British Rail Signals and Telecommunications was on the train, and he got off with steam coming out of his ears. I'm not quite sure whether that guy actually worked for BR afterwards, but you can bet your life he was on Form 1. But the third day, we everything was right, and the techniques we produced at St Pancras to give us the maximum lead time between the train following worked very well, and we did it. And the third day, the driver for that day, Ken Austin, who was without doubt the best APT driver ever. Ken could almost think the train when the power demands would come and go. The turbines took a long time to get their power up to maximum, and he turned the power up before you came out the end of the restriction. So Ken was always the best performer, and he was driving it that day. And apparently, by the time he got back to Derby that day, he had a raging headache because the concentration required. But everybody was so busy on that run. Everything was really hyped up. And we got back to Derby. We thought, done it. Really proved concept.
It was really the culmination of the programme to show that it worked city to city.
Yes, exactly right.
Speeding up. So, but when you saw that 152.3, where were you and how did you feel?
I was running tilt control that day, so I was in trailer car 2, and actually, from the point of view of tilt, those runs were all a bit anticlimactic, because the Great Western region, being the racetrack that Brunel designed, it's got very few inclines, very few sharp curves. In fact, on the bit we were using, the 25-mile section from Uffington to Goring, there are no sharp curves. Yeah. And we ran the power cars tilt passive, that is, they were locked parallel with the track.
Yeah.
There was a slight aerodynamic chance that it would improve aerodynamics like that, but the biggest problem was we found a fatigue problem with the tilt jacks on the power cars. Because we knew we had to keep it good for the London-Leicester runs following, they were redesigning those brackets, so we ran tilt passive so there was no load. But the trailer cars were tilting, but by that time we got the reliability of the system down. Well, I'd like to say a fine art, but it was rather more a fine science. And there really wasn't too much to do. Yeah. I was running, because of my position on the train, I was able to read the mileposts as well, so I was running a check milepost check. And you've heard the intercom tape which we have running in trailer car 1. And because of the time scale, that was the very last run. We couldn't take any more runs. That was the end of the last day of the last weekend. That was it. We've got to do it now. And earlier in the day, we'd done 3 more runs. The first one was okay, but the second 2 of which we had turbine control failure. So it was touch and go, and it was a very, very hot day in the middle of August. So the rear turbine in power car 2 had this failed board, and they replaced it with a spare board, which turned out to be already failed. So that was a disaster. But luckily we had the electronics engineer aboard the train. He built a manual control board, and Ray Coleman, one of our electrical engineers, took over the manual control board. There wasn't enough time to hook it into the remote system, so he stood alongside the turbine, driving the turbine manually, literally, whereas Alan Goodley in turbine control was talking to him over the intercom, telling him what settings to do. So it was pretty tight. And if you listen to the tape all the time, you can hear this byplay between Alan and Ray. Yes, turn it up a bit, turn it down a bit, etc., to give the maximum power. But when they checked the results afterwards, the power curve on Ray's manual control turbine was identical to the other ones on Power Car 2. Right. So although it was very tense from their point of view, from the tilt control point of view, we were just spectators. I was monitoring the trailer car 2. Steve Rice was in trailer car 1 in case anything went wrong, because we didn't want to, if anything did go wrong, we didn't want to be able to have to run backwards and forwards. So Steve was looking after TC1. In fact, it just worked. Switch it on, energise the tilt system, monitor it, read the outputs. Yeah, it's working all fine. Yeah, let's go 150 guys. Yeah, it's no problem. We'll do it. I'm always a little bit sad that we didn't make the design 155. I strongly suspect that if we'd have done it on one of the earlier runs in the cold of the early morning, because the turbine's power dropped off as it got warmer, we might well have done 155. But unfortunately, we'll never know unless we get the old dear millionaire benefactor, we're screwed.
So I mean, you sound quite blasé in a sense, but that was a world speed record for railways at the time.
I'm not actually sure it was. No, it was a UK speed record. The French had already done more than that on their electric, the Aquitaine lines. But they, of course, were overhead electric, 25 kV and stuff like that. E-Train still holds the non-electrified speed record for the UK, and I suspect it probably will for all time. Trying to do that in a diesel, anything, notwithstanding what HSTs can do, they will be pushed. And of course, any other high-speed rail developments have all been 25 kV overheads.
But at that time, I mean, this wasn't a massive corporation that was behind this. How many people were actually essentially within the development team of the RTC?
The design and development crew were probably 200 or 300 at maximum. Tilt system development, we had 6 of us maximum when we were doing rebuilds, but that dropped down to usually 4. But we were also running 2 other test trains. We had a pop train running as well, and we had Hastings coach towards the end of the period. So sometimes I found myself flitting around the country, waving passes people on freight trains and things to get rides in cabs. Yeah, I need to go to Crewe, really, now, sort of thing. So we were never actually overburdened with manpower. It was always a bit tight. The design side guys had their work really cut out because, of course, the number of ongoing modifications that were happening just kept on going. I mean, that's development work, that's what it is. And you not only need guys, the nut and bolt people, like myself, at the front end, you also need the theoretical engineers. That's my immediate boss, Dr. Maurice Pollard, and right at the top, of course, Professor Aaron Wickens, who are all providing the guiding lights and saying, yeah, we need to go this way. We say, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens. What do you want to do? And then they would come back and say, we'd like to do this, we'd like to do that, we'd like to do that. We'd say, no, you can't do that because such and such will break. You can't do that because the technology doesn't exist. Yeah, we'll go for this. So we try it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's what development work is. Nowadays, because of the advancement of computer studies, you can predict a lot of things ahead of the game. While we had computers at Derby, the Elliott mainframe, which did most of the work for Alan Wickens' dynamics work, was a monster thing. It was the size of 5 transit vans and needed a department of 15 or 20 people to feed it punch cards. But it got as much power as my watch. So nowadays things are completely different. And the way Jason and Bill are doing, you know, they've designed and built the train, and it exists as a computer model, but it doesn't actually exist in the plastic yet. We could, I mean, I can't imagine how we'd have done E-Train with the current day of technology, but the tilt pack would have been about that big.
So, I mean, you say, I mean, in the present day, how do you feel when you sat on a Pendolino now?
Where's this going out? What sort of audience is this going out?
We'll cut that bit then.
Pissed off. It really irritates me that in 1981, APT-E was still a quarter of an hour faster than the Pendolinos are to this day. And I was on the first run, December the 7th, 81, southbound at Glasgow to Euston, which was unfortunately the only fault-free run of that particular time when they ran them. And 2 years ago, Martin Collins, the HK brake equivalent to myself, he and I did the run on a Pendolino the same day, at the same time schedule as near as we could, and the Pendolino was 20 minutes slower than V-Train was. And maybe I have a biased point of view. Well, obviously I am here, biased to our little darling here, but I found the ride in the Pendolino not as distinct, should we say, as it was on P-Train or E-Train. There always seemed to be occasions when the vertical ride was out of connection with the real world, and certainly south of Rugby, I found the tilt performance of the Pendolino pretty unsatisfactory. But because of the way it works, I suspect what had happened is the civil engineers had done some track realignment to somewhere. They hadn't upgraded the software of the train, and the way the Pendolino software tilt system works, it relies on those two being linked together. Because that doesn't happen with the E-Train or P-Train system, because that relies on the actual physical input to the accelerometers, whereas Pendolinos don't do that.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. I mean, obviously for people that are out there that aren't familiar with you as a preservation group, how can they actually support you and help you?
Give us money! That would help, wouldn't it?
We're always after volunteers. It doesn't matter what any skill base you've got.
Any expertise
is good to us. We can make use of anybody. We've got that much work to do, and there's just so much stuff. You know, we can't be jacks of all trades.
Well, I mean, just learn as you go along.
But from my point of view, a personal thank you from me for, I mean, it was a childhood memory, and for it to actually still be here and obviously still having a future. So thank you from me on that side of it. And thank you all for what you're doing. So.
Thank you for taking the amount of interest that you have done to ask us all the questions and stuff. You might have gathered we're pretty evangelical about APT and E-Train in particular. And it's nice that people come along, especially for occasions like this, and take that much interest in us because it's nice to say, oh yeah, you know, we really are striking a chord with some people, and it's nice to know that.
Blinking lights. Right? Did I bump into it? Okay. Anyway, so all you need to do then, right, is open it up, put your 176 Kit Spackman with his big afro right into the TC2, and then you've got perfect realism right there.
That's fantastic.
No, but the issue that we talked about earlier is the challenges, right? Yeah. And the biggest challenge is what you need here in the UK is everyone should own a football pitch, all right? And that's for the size of their homes, okay? So you've got room to have really, really, really broad curves, okay? Because unfortunately, people don't live in these massive estates. You know, you live in your normal size house. Everyone has very, very tight curves. And the biggest challenge for us, it's not the tilt system. It's having a tilt system also work on a close coupling system so that it can go around a number 2 radius. Yeah. All right. You know, our North American passenger cars, we always say, you know, you should really have like a 30-inch radius curve for this, right? Who here has a 30-inch? No one has a 30-inch radius curve. Okay, because number 2 is like 17 1/4 inch radius, right? So that was our biggest challenge, and we're still working on that now. We've got a basic design. Yeah. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually show some cross sections on RMweb. Who's done this before? Who's actually said, okay, everybody, this is our patented design. Does it suck or not? Okay, and that's what we're going to do. Is we're going to put it on, and if anyone says, well, you know, either that's really clever or you know you're complete utter idiots, why don't you do it this way? Yeah. You know, then we'll listen to what people say. Yeah. Because that's our biggest challenge, is actually getting, the tilting is no problem. It's tilting and spreading apart on the curves in order to make, you know, go through those things. And I mean, you're going to want to stand on the inside of the curve, right? Yeah. You send this thing under a number 2 radius, okay? And I mean, look at this gap here, right? Yeah. That's going to open up like this. and all of your VIPs are going to fall out. Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got that challenge still to finalise. The tilting mechanism then, is that actually going to be dependent on the radius of the curve or the speed that you're tackling that radius?
All right. The only way that we could keep it affordable is to actually have the curve tilt, the tilt tied into the radius of the curve. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be like your 1980s model that was like, me, woo, yo, coffee's on the floor, woo! It's not going to look like that, right? Yeah. It's a very gradual tilt, okay? But, you know, there's no other way to do it. Yeah. That's economically feasible, right? So to have servos and to have the tilt specifically always go to 9 degrees I mean, you're looking at £1,000 plus per model.
Absolutely,
it's not worth doing. It's not worth doing.
Now the actual drive for the unit as well. So it's going to be a powered bogie at the leading end of each power car.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. It's very important. I'm not a fan of this one powered bogie trying to pull a whole train. I'm really not into that, okay? It's going to have a powered bogie so it's going to basically have a very conventional, by North American standards, not British standards, it's going to have a power truck, okay, leading to a 5-pole skew-wound motor with a flywheel. The flywheel is very important. That allows you, when you're going slow, it just gets it so it can just sort of keep going. It doesn't start stuttering on you, right? That's at each end. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to have little electrical connections between cars. Yeah. Right. So when you this is a train that you're going to want to build a case for. All right. Or Train Safe in Germany makes these, right? Where you drive the train in. Yeah. Close up the ends and take it and put it in the boot of your car. Okay. You don't want to be assembling this at every show. Yeah. Okay. Definitely, it's not that long a train. It's not that long. You can drive it into the case, close the case up, take the case up. We've seen people do this with our turbo train. There are people that take it up to exhibitions and they never take it apart. It's always assembled. Yeah. Okay, and we recommend that for this because there's going to be little plugs that have, I don't remember the exact number, I think it's 7 or 9 electrical connections in them. There's lots of little pins, right? And the more often that you take that apart, the more likely that you're going to be contacting us saying, I bent some pins, it doesn't work. Yeah. Right? But I should add, and this is very, very important, Rapido has a policy of standing by our models. Okay, so we have people contact us and say, I just ran my $300 locomotive off the end of the layout onto the floor, right? And then we say, send it back to us and we'll see what we can do. If it's a bunch of little bits, say what we call the pilot breaks off, little pieces, we'll fix it. We'll send it back, right? If it's major, it needs a complete shell replacement, we'll say, you know what, give us $75, $100, whatever the cost is, and we'll replace the shell for you. Right. With Rapido stuff, and this includes the APT-E, if you run it to the floor, don't give us a shout and say it arrived smashed. Right? Give us a shout and say, I ran it to the floor, can you fix it? And we will always try. We will always try. And even though we are based in Toronto and it's really, really far to carry it in your luggage, we have people here in the UK who will do their best to fix it for you if you can't fix it yourself. Or you can give us a call and say, I dropped my APT-E, or I put it together too hard, this piece broke, can you send me this piece? No charge, we will send you that piece, even if it's your fault. Okay, it's very, very important. We want people to be 100% satisfied customers. We want them to come back and buy our stuff in future. So even if you broke it, let us know and we'll try and fix it.
Now I've gone for the DCC fitted option.
So all should you.
So does that then sort of carry the electrical connections over to the interior lighting into the trailer cars? So the function.
The interior lighting comes off the track. That does not go through. All the DCC system controls the motor, the head and tail lights, and the sounds. Right? So we have another circuit board. So basically all the wires come up from the track through the wheel, the connections in the wheels, and they go to a little circuit board. There's a circuit board in each end. There's circuit boards in the individual TC1 and TC2. And then the decoder at one end plugs into that circuit board. Right, so there's a grand total of about 4 or 5 different circuit boards in the train. That we've already worked all that stuff out. We haven't worked out the exact programming of the circuits. We've got time for that. But we know the general design, and we've also found a very reliable, very tiny plug. Right, so you basically, when the thing opens on your number 2 radius curves and all your people fall out of the train, you should see a wire there. You're connecting the two carriages together.
Now, some of the things on the cosmetics, are you keeping it straightforward? I mean, would you do a moulded vent like that, or are you going towards sort of like any etched components?
Let me tell. This is how I feel about this. All right, etched does not necessarily mean better. And I think that's something we said. Oh, that's not etched. I'm sorry, I can't buy that. That's not etched. Right? You want to do, if you've got an opening in a grate, that in real life is 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, you can't get that small on an etch. You can't. You can get very close with injection molding. So you have to make that decision. Do you go with etch? I am not going to use an etch just to increase the apparent value of the train. I will look at every individual part and say, if this is good to etch, we'll etch it. If it's not, we won't. Right? And I mean, there's a recent model called the FPA4, which is a Canadian locomotive, where we originally started with something molded on because we said that the slats in the grills are too narrow to etch well. Right? We're going to mold it on. But then in the injection process, the first sample, the second sample, the third sample, we couldn't really get that see-through effect good enough. So you do a see-through effect with a mold. It's very, very clever. You've seen it on lots of models already in the UK, right? So you've got a grill, you've got an opening in the grill that say if that's this deep, and then you've got the things behind the grill are 1/2 as deep, right? So it looks like it's a see-through grill even though it's not. So the mold shop, because the parts were so fine, they could not do the see-through effect well enough. So I finally said, despite the fact we've already spent all this money on this engine, I said, redo the sides, cut out that area, put in an etched piece. I will accept the fact we won't have the exact number of holes, because in etched pieces you often can't, but I said, do that, because it's more important that it looks good. And so in that case, I wasn't going to use an etched part, and I did. So that may well happen here. We might bring a sample to Worley that has an etched part. And we look at it and say, this is rubbish. We're going to get rid of the etched part and mold it on. Or we might have a molded on part and decide to put an etched part. Etched does not necessarily mean better. The best thing is it has to look like a really, really accurate, true to life representation of the train that you want. Right? And whatever means you have to go to get there, that's what's important.
Good point. Now, thinking about the glazing that's actually on the trailer cars as well, it's a kind of smoky, semi-transparent that sometimes is a mirrored finish dependent on the light that's falling on it. How are you going to tackle the glazing?
We're not going to do the mirrored finish because we want you to see what's inside. So it's got interior lighting. Our turbo train has, and our LRC train both have, the Canadian trains was quite smoky glass, but the lighting inside really helps to see what's going on. Right? And remember, blinking lights!
Right. I think it's as good a place as any to stop that. Okay.